All right, so we've implemented a single query, right? But let's implement a couple more. For instance, in the service, notice this find all over here. This find all and this find by ID. I mean, it's fine, right? There's nothing particularly wrong with it. It is using the default implementation of find by ID and find all, but it has the flaw of exposing a low-level syntax, a low-level API. So we can implement our own so that it has a slightly higher level implementation and easier to read. Also, we don't have to deal with the fact that we're wrapping and unwrapping. Also, the fact that we need to cast because it comes back in the wrong data type. Right. So let's reinvent these implementations. So what we're going to do is that instead of using this low-level find by ID, this is what I would like the function to look like in the repository, right? I wish the repository had a function just like that, right? If it had it, I could call it, right? And it would give me just the widget as opposed to having to do the .get, right? And we can do that. We can copy that, head over to the repository, and define it. There it is. We define it. We define the API, how we want to consume the content, right? And then we can define the query that we want to map to. So we can say query, and the value is going to be that I want to select a widget from a class widget, right, where the widget.id is equal to the widget ID. Okay, this widget ID. Right, and then we just map this. We're going to say param, right, and widget ID. So this widget ID maps to that widget ID right here. Yes? Now that we have that, we can head over back to the service, and instead of using this low-level implementation, we can now use our brand new widget repository.find widget by ID. There it is. And we pass down the widget ID. See that? Right? If we restart the server, we can look at all the widgets. Here are all the widgets. I can retrieve widget number 3 here if we pass in the ID. So this should work exactly as before, right? So no changes. The only difference is that now my API down to the repository has a higher level implementation as opposed to using the low level implementation. Yes? We can do the same thing for finding all widgets. Instead of using this low level generic implementation, we can define it at a higher level. We can copy that. We can go to the repository and create our own. And this public like that, and this is query, and we can say that this is, I want all the widgets. So select widget from widget. No where clause. Right? If I don't put a where clause, that means that I want all the widgets. It's just going to retrieve all the widgets. So if I go back, and I can now rewrite this using my higher level API here. We can say this returns whatever the widget repository dot find all widgets. There we go. Find all widgets. All right. So if we refresh the page, the server, we can now retrieve all the widgets just like before, right? So no changes there. Okay.